Hello again, it is me, Jillian Jade at the Shatterpoint, and I'm here again on my bathroom floor because we need to talk. Let's talk about Jim Crow, black codes, and today's changing voting laws. So as you probably know, after slavery ended in 1865, black Americans were supposed to have the same rights as everyone else, and that included the right to vote. But many white lawmakers didn't want that to happen, so they made new laws to stop black people from voting. These were called black codes, and later on called Jim Crow laws, which you might be more familiar with. Now these laws didn't just come right out and say black people can't vote, because that would have been too obvious. Instead, they made rules that were hard to follow, or made it just specifically harder for black folks themselves and poor people to be able to meet in order to vote. And here's how it worked. Some states made people pay a tax to vote. This was called a poll tax. Many black people, many poor white people, rural people simply couldn't afford this tax, and so the only people voting were the wealthy. Other states made people pass a reading test, but these tests were very, very unbalanced and unfair. They might give a set of easy reading questions to a white voter, and then a much more dense, harder to read and understand paragraph for a black voter. And then some places had what they called grandfather clauses. These said that you could only vote if your grandfather had voted. But since most black people's grandfathers at the time were or had been enslaved, they never had the chance to vote, and therefore those people were blocked too. Now these laws obviously were not about fairness, they were not about civic duty, and they were not about expanding the right to vote. They were about keeping that power in the hands of the few, blatantly and bluntly white landowners and the wealthy ruling class. And for almost 100 years, these laws worked. Millions of black Americans were blocked from voting, but advocacy and works around changing the rules and laws of the Constitution and how voting works in the United States returned those voting laws and voting rights to everyone in the US who is eligible. But let's look at today. You might have noticed that some states are passing new laws that say you need to have a passport, a birth certificate, or a certain kind of ID to vote or be able to register to vote. They say it's to stop voter fraud, but there's almost no proof that voter fraud is a real problem. What is real? Passports cost over $100. Birth certificates cost money and take time to get. Some people, especially older folks or those born at home, never had a birth certificate in the first place. People who move a lot or live in rural areas or who are adopted sometimes don't even have those documents at all. Just like in the past, these rules don't say black people can't vote, but they hit the same groups the hardest. Black and brown people, poor people, rural folks, older adults, and people with disabilities. This is not new. It's the same idea from 150 years ago, dressed up in different clothes. The goal is the same: make voting harder for people who don't have power. You don't need a passport to pay taxes. You don't need a passport to serve on a jury. Why should you need one to vote? Voting is a right, not a privilege, and don't let anyone take that away. Not with poll taxes or reading tests or ID rules that are just modern day Jim Crow. Know the history, see the patterns, and speak up.